Hello and welcome back to Lessons Learned with the Community Lady. I am very happy today to actually be reconnecting with an old colleague, and of course, old not in the sense of your age, of course, but a former colleague in Baltimore, Maryland, who is doing great work. He is the current sitting senator. Senator Cory McCray of the 45th Legislative District in Baltimore, Maryland. Welcome to Lessons Learned.
First, thank you for this opportunity. I do feel like I'm getting older. I do feel like I'm breaking a big 40 this year.
Oh, wow. Well, happy early birthday. I didn't realize that. So, if you're getting older, I'm absolutely getting older.
You're getting younger. You're getting younger.
Wow. So you and we really do have a history working in the community.
Close to 2 decades.
Wow, Cory, goodness. Okay. Absolutely right. So just for everyone else who's watching, can you please share a little about your involvement in the community? Perhaps you want to mention how you got involved, what you do, just anything. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'll start with who I am, and then I'll go into a good Edie Taylor story. Edie Taylor Criddle.
Thank you.
But born and raised in the city of Baltimore, graduate from Fairmont Harford High School, right there, Harford 25th. I live in the Overlea community. I live there. My wife, Demetria, had 4 beautiful children, CJ Kennedy, Bryson, and Reagan. I'm an electrician by trade out of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. So I went through a 5-year apprenticeship program. Entrepreneur, been buying houses up and down Bel Air Road since I was 20 years of age. I got my training wheels in the Maryland House of Delegates, and I currently serve in the Maryland State Senate, and just a proud, distinguished honor. And just when I think of Edie Taylor Criddle, I think of like one of the first community activists, one of the people that were on the ground doing the real work that's necessary, especially by our young folks that needed the most. Like, she was one of the people that I was learning from. I'm talking in third person, but you were one of the people that I learned first, that I interacted with, and that I would just, that I look at as a mentor. I say close to 2 decades. I'll give you 15 years. But at the end of the day, I spoke at a graduation today, an 8th grade graduation, but I look at that as the work that you've been doing since I've known you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you. I thought you were going somewhere else with that story. No, actually, I loved, Cory, one of my most memorable moments working with you, outside of, just doing work with the community association and working in that community. First, it was really unheard of for me to see, as you mentioned, someone who's buying properties. And we have a certain lens that we use when we talk about investors. But here you were, being an investor who wasn't just investing your money, you were investing your time in the community. And that is, that's just so admirable. And I've never seen that done before. And I remember when the city schools, I would say Baltimore City Public School District, when they had that Good Kids Come Back campaign. And you and I were partnered to go, to actually go door to door to ask these kids, hey, where you been? We miss you. It's time for you to get back in school. And you were sharing, other options if they, didn't want to go that route. You were talking about the apprenticeship program. And, thank you. Again, it's just great to see that you're still doing just such great work in the community. So I know that, I don't want to keep you long. I know your time is very valuable because you are doing some great things for Maryland and for our country as well. I'll let you share that. But can you share with us from any aspect of your life in the community? Can you share one lesson learned working in the community that will either inspire, inform, comfort, or otherwise advise anyone who's currently working in the community or thinking about becoming involved working with communities on the ground?
Yep, I'll say just being intentional and being inclusive is very, very important. I believe that each and every day I look at opportunities and figure out where do I fall short at to make sure that we address that. I think it's important to give specifics. What do I mean? When you're doing an event or you're doing something within a community, you want to make sure that you involve everyone. You want to make sure you involve the people that are already on the ground doing the work. There's no need to duplicate services, figure out what's going on, and kind of pile into there. One of the things that I've also learned, especially in this legislative role, the delegates get about 40,000 and the senators get about 4 times as much as the delegates to hand out scholarships. And what I usually try my best to do is, we know where the areas of concentration of poverty are. We know where our young folks are inundated with liquor stores, food insecurities, and all of the social ills within our respective area, Ms. Edie. And how do we penetrate to make sure that they're elevated at such a level that they can get to the higher education opportunities? Because they're our best and brightest minds. They're no smarter, or they're not, folks are no smarter than they are. It's just that they're the same type of opportunities. So when I pinpoint and look at where I still do the scholarships, while I'll do better than my colleagues, I still can't crack the code in reference to making sure that we penetrate in the ways that we need to. What does something like that look like? Over communication. You think you may be communicating, the door knocking piece. Maybe everybody's not doing the electronic or things of that nature from that standpoint. So just how do we make sure that we penetrate to communities that need it the most, especially our young people? I'll leave you with another clear example. I sit on the Budget and Tax Committee of the Maryland State Senate, and it's a $50 billion+ budget. And when we talk about equity amongst chopping up a $50 billion budget, and keep in mind, it's only 13 people on that respective committee and like 5 or 6 people in the back room, I feel as though I have a large responsibility to make sure that when Black folks are trying to move their neighborhoods, that takes pace. That's a significant amount of responsibility. But my job is, how can I be as super intentional? How can I make those voices, or make sure that those voices that don't usually get heard, get elevated while those conversations are taking place? And then how can we make sure that the appropriations, because it's never really done, but how can we make sure that the appropriations is moving in a direction the way we can get as close, if not better, from an equitable decision for these neighborhoods that need it the most? Those are my lessons learned. Those are what I try my best to figure out each and every day, because I think structural arbitrary barriers are the challenges that have been plaguing our communities for decades on top of decades. And how do we relieve that pressure off of our communities?
I love that, because you're actually sharing, you're not only sharing a lesson that you've learned, but it's ongoing, because there's still so much work to do, and you're building just on past lessons.
Yep. You think you hit it, but you can always do better as well. And that's why I think the visual. So that map of where those scholarships are placed, that visual helps me say, no, you think you did it, but you didn't do is what you should to do better. Or when we look at the appropriations and we map out where dollars were appropriated, how strategically can we inject and penetrate more money into those communities that need it the most? And that's a lot of work. It ain't easy.
No,
they may not have a vehicle. You may not have the vehicle to get the money. You may have access. We had a $7 billion overage structural budget surplus, not deficit. Most people talk. We had extra money. Surplus. Now that you have that extra money, how do you get it into those communities? How do you find a vehicle to get it into those communities? How vehicles are equally as intentional as you're trying your best to be?
I think, wow. Okay. So, wow. I want to make certain that I stay focused, but I'll tell you what I think about, because you're right. That's part of the challenge, getting it into the community. But then how do you ensure, that, how do you ensure, and maybe I'm making an assumption here, but that the grassroots organizations who are on the ground have that capacity to manage the funds that are given to them. And then we're entering another territory with training them if they don't know, or assisting them, or putting some type of vehicle in place that can facilitate, the implementation of these funds in the community.
Yep. And we see that with a lot of different spaces. And what we try to do is try to figure out, if we can't get them $500,000, $1 million, can we at least get them 75,000? Can we get them to 50,000, 150,000 to be able to start? We know that they're going to make mistakes, but they have to be given the opportunity to be able to make those mistakes. Get in there. Forward, from that standpoint. And collectively, what is the community that they're serving? I think of the Club of Collington and how those folks are serving all those young people and doing it with little resources. And they don't have like the back room or the office and things of that nature. Fill out all these grants or get all this government dollars. Like, they're just serving people. Every day, and they want to serve people and don't know all of the different crafts or different relationships and things of that nature. So that's my job. I feel as though that's my responsibility is, like you said, if they don't have that bandwidth, if they don't have that infrastructure in place, how do we create it in small stages? If we're doing nothing, we're at fault, but at least we got
At least we're trying. Wow.
5 yards,
That's
10
good.
yards, 15 yards.
Mhm.
And that's what I wake up trying my best to do is build that infrastructure.
That is good. That is really good. Okay. Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Because there's so much food for thought. And I pray that this is helpful to everyone who's watching us as well. Senator McCray, do you have any final thoughts to share with us? I know we've shared several examples, and you've dropped many gems that we will, continue to build upon, because as you mentioned, it's not, the legislation can't do it alone. The universities can't do it alone. It really does take the village.
You know what, the thing that I reach out is that our greatest asset is time. And what are we doing with our time? What are we making sure that it's purposeful, meaningful, and serving people with that time that we have? We do not get a second shot at this thing. So just want to say thank you for this opportunity. It has been a pleasure, an honor to be able to share this moment, share my time with you, because I think that you're doing the people's work. Ever since I've known you, you've been doing the people's work. But I called to the question, especially everybody that's looking, and ask myself, Cory, are you using your time as efficiently, as effectively to be able to serve the community that has given to you, poured into you, and making sure that you lift others? Because that's the greatest, I don't want to call it joy, but like it's a feeling that's unexplainable. You can try to have all the money, you can try to have the wealth, you can have all these other things, but I'm telling you, when you serve people, it's a feeling that is unexplainable that you cannot get back. And I hope that we're utilizing our time as best as we can.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Well, from my perspective, you continue to do a great job. What I love about your service is, and I'll share this quickly, but I'm trying to recall what was happening around us. But one of the first moments I met you, I remember you asking about the role of the elected official. And at the time, you were thinking, you were making statements like, well, what is supposed to be happening? Can't we go to our elected person to get assistance with this? And that was just very, very, very early on. So just to see you and to see that you still have that zest, and that zeal and that drive, and that you're talking about making the most of your time and it being meaningful. That's really what we always convey, that community work, it is hard work. It's hard work and it's hard work. But if you don't have the passion and the heart, you'll get drained, you'll go underground, you become overwhelmed. So hopefully these lessons learned segment will inspire you to keep going, to know that you are in great company, right? So thank you so much for joining us for another Lessons Learned. As always, share any comments, any thoughts below, any ideas or topics for future lessons learned, or for future topics you'd like for us to cover. Thanks again. Until next time, keep doing, keep moving, and keep shaking things up in your communities. Peace.
Working in community, no place I'd rather be. Working in community, lifting, loving, setting free. Don't know where